Before the world ended, Ethan and I had already picked out where we planned to survive it. After the apocalypse hit, our original plan was simple. Stay inside our oversized suburban house. Live off what we'd stockpiled. Wait it out. We thought we were prepared. Turns out our neighbors were even crazier than we were. One went full high-tech fortress mode. The other committed to some kind of sustainable homestead survival cult vibe. Meanwhile, we were just the bulk Costco and prey couple. And in the end, we learned something the hard way. The living fighting over resources are far more dangerous than the dead. What our neighbors didn't know. The 3 households on our quiet little strip of suburbia were all hiding something. And none of us were amateurs. I met Ethan at a support group for what the therapist politely called catastrophic preparedness anxiety. Most couples want a house, a car, and a savings account before they get married. We wanted a defensible location and 6 months of non-perishables. Our marriage certificate hadn't even cooled off before Ethan told me he had something to show me. I put on my best surprised wife face. Inside? I already knew. He'd found the house. Not a starter home. A fallback position. We drove almost 2 hours out of the city. No military bases nearby. No airports. No major highways. No government buildings. Just scattered warehouses in the distance and empty land stretching farther than seemed financially reasonable. Perfect.
Wait,
I said as we turned through a gated entrance.
there's actually a neighborhood out here?
Not just a neighborhood. A half-finished luxury villa development that had clearly run out of buyers halfway through the housing market crash. Wide spacing. Independent yards. Low occupancy. Not a single person walking the streets. It was eerie. It was beautiful. It was safe. Ethan looked proud in a way that made my heart ache.
I've been tracking this place for months,
he said. Then his voice softened.
We couldn't afford the standalone model, though. So, it's a townhouse.
Shared wall. The car stopped in front of a 2-story unit. I turned toward him, wrapped my arms around his neck, and kissed his cheek hard.
I love it.
I said.
It's perfect.
I'll make hot pot tonight. Your favorite. I'm a university lecturer. Ethan's a trauma surgeon. We do well. But we're not tech CEO rich. For what people paid for Polish condos downtown, we bought a townhouse in what most sane couples would call the middle of nowhere. Commute? 2 hours. Groceries? Plan ahead. Entertainment? You're looking at it. Most financially responsible adults would have laughed at us. We felt victorious. I stepped out of the car and studied the layout. 3 connected townhouses. Ours was one of the smaller end units. Behind us sat a larger, more expensive central property. But something caught my attention immediately. For a development with such low occupancy, both of our attached neighbors were clearly already living there. And not casually. Their exterior walls had been reinforced. Raised higher. Thick. No visibility into either yard. No decorative fences. No friendly suburban openness. Just privacy. Intentionally engineered privacy. I tugged Ethan's sleeve and pointed toward a row of completely empty units farther down the road.
If this whole place is basically unsold,
I said.
why pick the one strip where both neighbors are already moved in?
The wind moved through the empty lots. Somewhere far off, a metal sheet clanged against a warehouse wall. Ethan smiled.
You'll see.
That tone meant he was absolutely about to be insufferable. I decided not to push and practically ran into the house. The interior was already finished. Not luxury magazine polished, but warm. Lived in. Thought through. And then I saw it. The basement. It was massive. Nearly the same square footage as the main floor. There was even a sunken courtyard and a full light well that brought natural daylight underground.
You did all this without telling me?
I asked, my eyes burning. I had assumed we were buying a shell. Something we'd renovate over years. Instead, I was standing inside the physical manifestation of every late-night apocalypse planning conversation we'd ever had. Ethan wrapped his arms around me.
I started the day I knew I was going to marry you.
He said.
Move-in ready, Mrs. Walker.
He grinned.
Basic renovations are done. But as for strategic supply layout, I defer to the expert.
I married well. We didn't take a honeymoon. We spent our newlywed leave optimizing survival infrastructure. We had no idea what form the end of the world would take. Pandemic. Nuclear fallout. Civil collapse. Something worse. So we prepared for everything. The basement became our primary contingency zone. We divided it into 4 sections. Living quarters. Storage. Cold room. Medical bay. The living section included a bedroom, kitchenette, bathroom, and yes, a tiny future nursery. Just in case. The storage section was where my obsession thrived. Rice. Flour. Oil. Dry goods. Hygiene supplies. Batteries. Water purification tablets. Everything vacuum sealed and calculated for a 3-person household at maximum safe storage duration. We were preparing for catastrophe, not trying to create waste before it arrived. The cold room used to be a small utility space. We converted it into a walk-in freezer. Meat. Frozen produce. Ready-to-heat meals. Because if we were surviving the end of civilization, I refused to do it on crackers alone. The medical bay was Ethan's territory. If hospitals failed, he would become ours. Prescription meds. IV supplies. Sutures. Antibiotics. Sterile instruments. He even installed a sealed sterile field and a compact surgical table. Most wives inherit jewelry. I inherited a fully functional underground trauma unit. We also set aside a hydroponic corner. Fresh greens, even in isolation. I could tolerate freeze-dried vegetables. I just didn't want to. We ordered supplies online over months. Staggered deliveries. No sudden bulk purchases. No red flags. Everything methodical. But there was one thing that kept me up at night. The light well. To get natural light into the basement, it had to be reinforced glass. And glass, no matter how engineered, is still glass. If someone breached the yard, what would stop them from smashing it? After weeks of debate, we compromised. We kept the laminated security glass. But we isolated the light well behind a separate reinforced steel door. In safe conditions, the door would remain open and we'd enjoy sunlight underground. In danger? Door sealed. Basement becomes a vault. The underground setup was primarily for worst-case surface contamination, nuclear, biological, atmospheric. Most of the time, we expected to live upstairs like normal people. Ethan had already reinforced exterior walls during renovation. Soundproofing, waterproofing, impact-resistant window film, high-grade air filtration system integrated into the ventilation, blackout curtains on every window, inside and out. But aesthetically, it still looked like a regular suburban home. Because if the neighbors ever came over, explaining a visible bunker vibe would be complicated. Power was our final concern. We installed multiple high-output solar panels across the roof. But we had a freezer, climate control, dehumidifiers, security systems, perimeter surveillance, medical equipment, normal daily electricity usage. I did the math.
I don't think solar alone covers this,
I said. Ethan blinked at me with that maddeningly calm confidence.
And that,
he said softly,
is exactly why I chose the unit with neighbors.
You're saying the 3 of our units run on a separate power system?
I nearly shouted it. Ethan immediately raised a finger to his lips.
Shoo!
I clamped my mouth shut.
So, do we pay electric bills?
I whispered. He shrugged lightly.
I guess we should introduce ourselves to the neighbors.
We decided to visit the larger unit directly behind ours, the biggest of the 3 connected homes. Ethan grabbed a box of pastries we'd picked up earlier. We rang the doorbell. Within moments, the door opened. A woman in her early 40s stood there, impeccably groomed, composed, and effortlessly elegant. Not flashy. Just expensive. We introduced ourselves and handed over the desserts. She welcomed us inside warmly.
Please, call me Vivian,
she said with a smile.
It's rare to see living people around here. Sometimes it feels like we moved into a ghost development.
Her tone was light, but she wasn't wrong. Inside, the house was breathtaking. Custom finishes, designer furniture, subtle luxury everywhere. Nothing gaudy, just clearly high-end. The decor alone probably cost more than the house itself. Whatever had brought her family to this nearly abandoned community, it certainly wasn't financial limitation. Ethan didn't waste time.
We heard the 3 of our houses are connected to a private power grid, and that it was funded by you. We wanted to introduce ourselves and also ask how billing works.
A woman dressed in professional domestic attire brought us tea and fruit plates. I instantly felt underdressed and underqualified for this living room. Vivian, however, had none of the aloof superiority I expected.
Our household has specific requirements,
she said calmly.
My husband's work can't tolerate outages. And since occupancy here is low, the municipal infrastructure isn't fully stabilized yet.
She took a small sip of tea.
So we installed our own generation system. It would be wasteful to power only one home. Sharing seemed practical. There's no need to talk about payment.
My internal accountant wept with joy. Free electricity. But curiosity quickly replaced gratitude. What kind of job required private infrastructure? Ethan's attention drifted to the far wall. Framed posters hung there, stylized digital art. His eyes widened.
Wait, those are from Crown of Glory and Battle Duck Arena.
I blinked.
Those are the games you stayed up playing until 2 a.m. yesterday?
He nodded like he'd just seen a religious icon. Vivian laughed softly.
I don't understand games much. But I suppose it's reassuring to know people actually play what my husband designs.
Ethan practically levitated.
Play them? They're two of the hottest titles on the market right now. Massive player base. Incredible design systems. That's amazing.
He'd already upgraded from you too, ma'am. Vivian waved it off modestly.
He's only one of several lead designers. There's a full development team behind him. He prefers staying home, coding, testing, and tweaking mechanics. A bit of a recluse, honestly.
A recluse with enough capital to build a private power plant. Sure. Still, finding out that a low-profile tech powerhouse lived behind us? Strategically speaking, that was excellent news. If the world ended, you wanted the genius next door on your side. Ethan tried to sound casual, but I knew that look. He wanted to meet the man. Maybe discuss optimization. Maybe score some in-game advantages. Vivian, perceptive as ever, asked for his gamer tag on the spot.
I'll pass it along,
she said.
Perhaps they can queue together sometime.
Ethan looked more thrilled than the day we signed our marriage certificate. As we were leaving, Vivian added casually,
We also installed a private network node when we built the power system. If you'd like to connect, feel free. It's uncapped and far more stable than the public grid.
Uncapped. Private. Stable. I almost hugged her. We thanked her repeatedly and absolutely did not decline. That night, Ethan's account mysteriously acquired S-tier gear, rare heroes locked behind premium paywalls, and exclusive skins that normally required reckless amounts of microtransactions. Vivian's customer service was terrifyingly efficient. Ethan gamed until nearly midnight.
If you keep this up,
I teased.
You'll be scrubbing into surgery with dark circles down to your chin.
We were still laughing when... Ding. 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 Our yard gate buzzer. At that hour? I assumed it was Vivian. She was the only neighbor we knew. Ethan was in nothing but basketball shorts, headset still around his neck, so I went to answer. I opened the door and froze. Standing there was a man wearing even less than my husband. Bare chest. Muscular. Tanned. And the only thing covering him was what appeared to be a skirt woven out of leaves. I screamed.
Pervert!
Behind me, I heard Ethan's chair scrape violently across the floor. He grabbed the nearest weapon available, a kitchen knife, and charged toward the door.
Wait, I'm your neighbor, the one next door. Please don't stab me.
The nearly naked man reacted fast. Before Ethan could even reach the doorway with the kitchen knife, the guy had already retreated a good 30 feet down the driveway. I managed to steady my breathing.
Neighbor? Then why are you dressed like that at midnight?
He exhaled awkwardly and scratched the back of his head.
Sorry. I know this looks insane. My smart lock died. I stepped out to take the trash and the door locked behind me. Phone's inside. Charger's inside. Everything's inside. So I panicked and came over to borrow a power bank.
Ethan narrowed his eyes.
You couldn't at least put on more leaves?
The man glanced down at Ethan, who was also standing there shirtless in athletic shorts, clutching a knife. Ethan slowly lowered the blade. Point taken. We handed him a power bank. After a few tense minutes of charging his lock system, he jogged back home and finally got inside. True to his word, he immediately returned the charger.
Tomorrow, if you're free, I'd love to have you both over.
He said earnestly.
Proper introductions. And to apologize for tonight's situation.
Ethan and I were easygoing people. And admittedly curious. We accepted. The next day at noon, we walked over to the neighboring unit, the other small townhouse connected to ours. Today, the man was fully dressed.
Hey, I'm Caleb Reed.
He said with an easy grin.
Looks like we're officially neighbors now.
Nice to meet you.
Ethan replied. The moment we stepped through the gate, I understood something. Last night's outfit might not have been as strange as I thought. If someone had blindfolded me and dropped me there, I would have sworn I'd entered a tropical survival compound. Towering trees twisted together overhead. The original swimming pool had been transformed into what looked like a natural pond. Thick foliage crowded every path. I could hear birds, insects, actual wildlife sounds. There was barely a visible walkway. Ethan stared around.
Wow. Your yard is very organic.
Caleb beamed proudly.
Self-sustaining ecosystem.
Of course it was. He led us toward the house. Even the exterior had been remodeled, stone-textured walls, climbing vines, the front entrance reshaped to resemble a cave opening. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen in a suburban development. The door opened. A woman wearing glasses greeted us with a warm but slightly shy smile. No makeup. Natural beauty. Clear eyes.
This is my wife, Maya.
Caleb said.
Hi.
She said, adjusting her glasses.
Thank you for saving my husband from sleeping outside last night.
Trust me, we were just glad he wasn't a serial killer. I laughed.
Inside, the decor shifted dramatically. Minimalist. Clean. Even simpler than our home. Maya brought out plates of fruit and tea.
I was away last night.
She explained.
And of course the smart lock battery chose that moment to die. If it weren't for you, he probably would have tried to build a shelter out front.
Hey, I could have...
Caleb muttered defensively.
You would have started a live stream first.
She shot back. Ethan grinned.
Wait, live stream?
Caleb rubbed his neck sheepishly.
I run a survival channel. Wilderness skills, off-grid living, sustainable systems. Small following. Nothing huge.
Maya cut in smoothly.
He's being modest. He's actually got a solid audience. We redesigned the yard to function as a real-world filming environment. Everything you saw outside is practical: water collection, edible plants, micro-ecosystem management.
Caleb nodded eagerly.
Primitive shelter builds, fire-starting techniques, resource recycling, stuff like that. The leaf skirt was for filming.
I blinked.
So that wasn't... cosplay?
Absolutely not.
He said quickly.
I'm a normal person. I just prefer preparedness over panic.
Ethan smirked and clapped him on the shoulder.
Brother, no judgment. We just thought you were very committed.
Caleb laughed, clearly relieved. Between Vivian's high-tech infrastructure and Caleb's sustainable survival compound, it suddenly dawned on me. We weren't the only ones preparing for something. And for the first time since moving here, I felt something shift. Maybe this wasn't just coincidence. Maybe the three of us had chosen this place for the same reason.
Maya called out, "Lunch is ready."
And we gathered around their dining table. The spread was impressive. Pan-seared fish, roasted meat, handmade bread, and a vibrant salad made from vegetables I couldn't even name. Once Caleb loosened up, he and Ethan cracked open beers. It didn't take long. A couple drinks in, the truth started flowing.
Try the fish.
Caleb said proudly, cheeks flushed.
Raised it in the pond out front. For filming, I built a chicken coop on the side yard. We've got a few goats and one dairy cow. Most of the produce is grown here too. Nothing fancy. Just fresh.
I exchanged a look with Ethan. The flavor was unreal. The eggs tasted rich. The greens were crisp. Everything felt alive.
This is incredible.
I admitted.
But how come we've never heard any animals?
Caleb rubbed his nose, a little sheepish.
Soundproofed shelters. I'm not trying to get reported. Especially not by the big house behind us. That family looks serious.
You mean Vivian?
Ethan laughed.
She's not going to report you. She's actually really kind.
You've met them?
Ethan, slightly buzzed, grinned.
Not just met them, we're basically gaming partners now.
The lunch ended with Caleb completely passed out in his chair. Back home, Ethan didn't fare much better. He made it to the bathroom just in time to empty an entire stomach of all-natural organic goodness. Men bond fast. One drunken afternoon and suddenly they're brothers. That day we learned Caleb was a former Marine. Maya had started as his production assistant for his survival channel. Somewhere between filming wilderness shelter builds and fire-starting tutorials, she became his wife. We also learned they'd been trying for a baby for over a year, with no luck. Something about the way Maya looked down when she said it stayed with me. Time passed quietly. 3 years. 3 years in our remote compound. By then, Ethan and I had a 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Our basement supplies had grown from enthusiastic preparation to what could honestly qualify as long-term resilience planning. Adrian, Vivian's husband, remained almost mythical. In 3 years, I'd seen him maybe 4 times in person. He rarely left the house. But online? He and Ethan gamed constantly. Vivian and I became close. She loved hosting tea in her courtyard garden. Eventually, Maya joined us too. The 3 of us formed an easy rhythm: flowers, tea, conversation. Caleb and Maya were still childless. Recently, they'd begun discussing IVF. Life felt normal. Domestic. Ordinary. And then, overnight, the world collapsed. A global outbreak. A virus. People attacking people. The word zombie flooded every news channel within hours. Ethan and I looked at each other in stunned silence. Our doomsday paranoia was cured instantly. Because it wasn't paranoia anymore. The apocalypse had arrived. When it happened, I was on summer break. Ethan wasn't on call. Lily was home with us. Our extended family members lived in high-rise buildings downtown, and we'd already stocked them with emergency supplies over the years. That night was unnaturally quiet. During renovation, we had raised our outer wall to nearly 7 feet. On top of it, we installed an additional 3-foot electrified wire mesh. Maya once joked that it looked like we were hiding a national treasure. We'd brushed it off as extra security because it's remote. Eventually, we convinced Vivian and Caleb to install similar systems. Back then, the power stayed off to avoid accidents. Now, Ethan and I activated everything immediately. Perimeter electrification. Surveillance. Motion detection. If infected or desperate humans tried to climb in, they wouldn't make it far. Our neighborhood was sparsely populated. Few residents meant fewer initial infections. And being far from highways or dense urban centers bought us time. So far, no roaming hordes outside. Then Ethan slapped his forehead.
No light.
He rushed downstairs and grabbed the blackout curtains we'd stockpiled. If citywide blackouts spread, and they would, any visible light would become a beacon. He jumped into our group chat. Within minutes, the three households met at the shared boundary wall and passed blackout curtains over to one another. All exterior lights went dark. From the outside, our homes now looked abandoned. That night, we held our first post-collapse strategy meeting, online. Ethan.
We're physically connected. If one household falls, the others are exposed. We need unity.
Everyone understood. In peaceful times, we were friends. Now? Survival partners. Trust would be tested. The smartest move wasn't blind faith, it was mutual dependency. But we underestimated our neighbors. Vivian.
We will continue providing private power and network access. No one here will lose electricity.
I exhaled in relief. Power meant refrigeration, medical equipment, security systems. Ethan.
Queen Vivian.
Caleb. +1. Maya. Blessed. I typed carefully. Me.
We've stockpiled grains and staples. If anyone runs low, we can provide long-term supply. And by stockpiled, I meant years' worth. Rice, flour, beans, plus seed kits for small-scale cultivation.
Maya.
If we've got staples, we'll provide fresh food. Vegetables, eggs, fish.
Caleb.
The milk.
Right. The cow. Vivian.
Grateful.
Then Ethan added something serious. Ethan.
Cook carefully. No strong smells. We don't know how the infected track targets yet.
Vivian responded almost instantly. Vivian.
The infected lose higher cognition after contracting WD-033. They rely heavily on olfactory triggers. Avoid strong food scents. The group chat went silent.
Maya.
WD-033? That's the virus name?
No response. A few minutes later. Vivian.
Yes. Just saw it reported.
Ethan and I immediately turned on the news. Breaking update. A lab leak suspected overseas. The pathogen identified as WD-033, a highly infectious prion-like agent. Citizens advised to shelter in place. Ethan stared at the screen.
Did that just air?
I nodded slowly. Maybe she'd seen a faster channel. That had to be it. Because otherwise, how would Vivian know the designation before national broadcast confirmation? We exchanged a look. Then we both looked at Lily sleeping beside us. Questions could wait. Survival came first. The virus had been spreading for a full week. So far, the three of us, 3 households, were still safe. Through the surveillance cameras, we monitored the street day and night. Occasionally, a lone infected would wander past, dragging its feet along the asphalt. But they were scattered. No coordinated movement. No real threat, yet. Every evening, we held an online neighborhood meeting. We updated supplies, checked perimeter security, compared notes. That night, Caleb messaged first. Caleb.
Okay, confession time. We're officially out of stored grains. Last dry food left is 1 bag of tomato-flavored chips. Willing to trade at a discount for a bag of rice.
Ethan.
You're negotiating like we're on Craigslist.
Caleb.
Hey, survival capitalism. I'll throw in fresh fish soup. Good for Lily.
Lily was curled up next to me, clutching Ethan's phone. Before I could stop her, she tapped at the screen and sent a string of random emojis into the group chat. Everyone reacted with laughing faces. Behind the humor, though, I was calculating. Caleb's grain reserves were gone, but he still had vegetables, eggs, fish, milk. He wouldn't starve anytime soon. What bothered me was Vivian's household. She had never once mentioned shortages. Not rice. Not produce. Not anything. Had they stockpiled in advance too? Ethan and I had discussed it privately before. If we were going to survive long term, we needed transparency. A shared inventory. Clear numbers. Consumption rates. Otherwise, long-term sustainability would be guesswork. I typed carefully into the group chat. We should consider openly sharing what each household has in storage. Not exact numbers if uncomfortable, but at least categories. That way we can plan for long-term self-sufficiency. The message was polite, neutral, but mostly directed at Vivian and Adrian. They were kind, always calm, always generous, but secretive. Too secretive. Minutes passed. No response from Vivian. Instead, a notification popped up from Adrian, which immediately made my stomach tighten. Adrian almost never spoke in the group chat unless it involved gaming schedules. Adrian.
3 individuals approaching our perimeter.
Silence. Ethan. How? Caleb. Our walls are electrified. Triple layer wire. How are they getting close? Adrian replied almost instantly. Adrian.
They've already neutralized 2 infected outside. Use shovels. They brought a ladder. Wearing insulated gear. They're currently attempting entry from the east side wall.
Cold realization flooded through me. They had scouted us. This wasn't random. Our homes were reinforced. Higher walls. Barbed electrified fencing. Too secure compared to surrounding houses. Security attracts attention. Adrian.
Vivian and I are in the backyard. 3 against 2. Odds are not favorable. Suggestions?
A second later, he shared his security camera feed with us. On screen, we watched 3 men struggle upward along the electrified fencing. Because the wall was nearly 10 feet tall and topped with barbed current lines, climbing wasn't easy. They moved slowly, clumsy in their insulated suits, but determined. Caleb.
If we had a firearm, this would be over.
Caleb was former military. But none of us, no matter how prepared, had access to actual illegal weapons. Adrian.
What about a replica?
Caleb.
What kind of replica?
Adrian.
High-precision air-powered sniper model. Realistic range. Fire steel pellets. No lethal rounds, but enough force to bruise, break skin. Effective for small games.
A pause. I imagined Caleb assessing distance, angle, wind. Caleb.
That'll do.
Through the shared camera feed, we watched Adrian move quickly to the dividing wall between his backyard and Caleb's. The rifle came flying over. Caleb appeared moments later on our own camera, bare arms exposed, wearing only a tactical vest. He crouched silently in the narrow strip of shadow along his wall. That angle, just barely, gave him line of sight into Vivian's yard. If the intruders had chosen the front entrance instead, we'd have been helpless. They were halfway over the wall now. Then, thump. 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 3 soft, suppressed sounds. The air rifle had a silencer attachment. Each pellet struck precisely at the head. The men jerked violently in pain, lost their grip, and toppled backward. Nearly a 3-meter drop. Even prepared, landing from that height is brutal. But they weren't prepared. They fell blind back first onto the pavement outside the wall. Adrian.
Impressive.
Ethan.
Caleb, you legend.
On the shared feed, we saw the 3 men lying motionless. Unconscious. Bleeding from scalp wounds. None of us spoke for a moment. Then movement appeared at the far end of the street. 2 infected. Then another. Blood carries. The scent travels. Within minutes, the fallen men were surrounded. Dragged. Pulled out of frame. Disappeared from view. The group chat went silent. We all knew what that meant. None of us were saints. None of us had illusions about playing heroes in a collapsing world. But watching human beings get consumed, knowing we had indirectly caused it. Fear settled heavy in my chest. Grief, too. We were ordinary people. And in apocalypse mode, maybe the only thing within our power was to protect the ones closest to us, no matter the cost. After the attempted breach at Vivian's house, we all became sharper, harder, less naive. If 3 men could scout us, coordinate, and nearly breach an electrified wall, then our current defense level was no longer enough. Security had to be redesigned, upgraded, reinforced. But upgrading meant materials, steel, wiring, fuel, tools, tech. No single household could shoulder that burden alone. The truth was undeniable now. 3 separate houses. 1 shared fate. We might have physical walls between us, but we had already survived 1 life or death moment together. That made us more than neighbors. That made us a team. And teams required trust, which meant the transparency conversation could no longer be postponed. That night, Ethan officially called for what he dramatically titled the Second Post-Disaster Strategic Neighborhood Summit. He opened the group chat with full ceremony. Ethan?
Neighbors, in order to maintain a healthy and forward-moving alliance under crisis conditions, we must adopt the 4 mutual principles: mutual honesty, mutual resource sharing, mutual assistance, and zero concealment.
Maya.
Ethan definitely has some government energy in him.
Caleb.
Ask me anything. I'll disclose down to the last calorie.
Maya.
That's not how the phrase goes.
Caleb and Maya were joking as usual. But Vivian and Adrian were silent. Again. Minutes ticked by. I thought the summit might end awkwardly under the label incomplete attendance. Then, Vivian finally replied. Her message was longer than usual. Vivian.
I owe you all an apology. I do have secrets. I hesitated because once spoken, they cannot be taken back. But Adrian and I have decided to tell you the truth. You saved our lives. In this war, we are allies, family. We should not hide things from family. I only hope that after hearing my story, you will still choose to trust us.
She attached an installation file. Adrian's custom-built encrypted messaging app. From now on, sensitive conversations would happen there. Vivian's tone was serious. Earnest. I had known it. She had always felt like someone carrying more than she showed. The chat fell silent. No one wanted to interrupt. Finally, Vivian continued. Vivian.
This may sound unbelievable. Think of it as a story, if you must.
Then she began. Before moving here, Vivian had been assigned overseas, embedded as a researcher in a covert operation in the United States. There, she infiltrated a century-old extremist organization. Publicly, they were a cutting-edge biotech research consortium. Privately, they were developing a neurocontrolling virus. Their goal was simple: weaponize infection, override human cognition, turn people into obedient tools, soldiers without autonomy, killers without conscience. Clinical trials had shown terrifying progress. Vivian's mission was to infiltrate and destroy their core data. Many agents had attempted the same. Most disappeared. She survived. She blended in.
I look harmless.
She wrote.
That helped.
For nearly 10 years, she embedded herself deeply enough to gain access to primary research archives. Her objective was not combat. It was sabotage. At the right moment, she destroyed their central databases. Primary files, backups, experimental logs. Then she extracted. But she made one fatal miscalculation.
You can delete data.
She wrote.
You cannot erase human memory.
One of the key architects of the virus, the founder himself, remained unidentified. Alive. Invisible. After returning home, she learned the organization had suffered massive setbacks. Her mission was technically successful, but incomplete. Her cover had been compromised. She had to disappear. 3 years ago, she began noticing strange behavioral outbreaks appearing in scattered news reports. Viral clips. Unexplained aggression. Neurological anomalies. She connected the dots. Without the original data, the organization's continued research had gone off course. The virus mutated. Instead of precision-controlled soldiers, it created mindless, hyper-aggressive hosts. Highly contagious. Unstable. The world now called them infected. Vivian called it a deviation. She had tried to warn friends. No one listened. Some distanced themselves. So she stopped talking. She built quietly instead. The reinforced walls. The backup generator systems. The lab in her basement. All of it preparation.
I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner.
She finished.
I was afraid.
And selfish.
But I prepared for 3 households. Not just ours. I always hoped one day I could say that openly. When you need supplies, I will provide.
Silence filled the chat. 5 long minutes. Then, Caleb.
On that note, I still have exactly 1 bag of tomato chips left. Willing to trade for rice. The tension cracked.
Ethan.
Know yourself, know your enemy. Transparency wins wars. After Vivian's confession, both our family and Caleb's chose trust. In return, Ethan and I explained the real reason behind our own stockpiling.
Caleb.
So we're the only ones who didn't see this apocalypse coming?
Ethan. Don't say that.
You're running a sustainable ecosystem operation. Compared to you, we're amateurs.
Caleb.
Fair. If you want fresh food, you're still coming to me.
Then Vivian added something that shifted the tone again. Vivian.
After the intrusion attempt, I believe it's time you all receive defensive equipment. Adrian has inventory. Come select what you're comfortable with.
That snapped me back to priority. Weapons were useful. But structural defense came first. I typed. Me. C.
We also need to upgrade perimeter systems. That has to move to the top of the list.
Vivian.
Come to our place. Let's plan in person.
Walking openly between houses was impossible. Meeting outside along shared walls was risky. So we used the only shared structural space available: the basement utility corridor. Because our homes were part of a connected townhouse structure, we shared a central mechanical room beneath the properties. It was the only communal interior space. During renovations, each household had installed reinforced steel security doors leading into the shared room. Now Adrian activated what he had quietly prepared long ago: a dual authentication electronic locking system. Each door required fingerprint recognition. But here was the catch. Any door could only unlock if two households simultaneously authenticated using the same method from their respective homes. For example, if I wanted access to Vivian's side, either Ethan or I had to authenticate in our home at the exact same time that Vivian or Adrian authenticated in theirs, using fingerprint or mechanical key, but the method had to match. If only one side verified, nothing happened. If methods differed, nothing happened. Forced entry triggered destructive fail-safes. Adrian explained calmly that the mechanical systems in that room were critical for survival. Redundancy and caution were necessary. There was one more layer. The fingerprint scanner also collected a painless microblood sample. Vivian, having resumed research on what she called the WD-033 strain, had developed a rapid detection method once the outbreak began. The lock system was linked directly to her basement lab database. The blood sample would instantly screen for infection markers. Only if both households passed the infection check and authenticated simultaneously would the doors unlock. Complicated? Yes. But in a world collapsing outside our walls, complexity meant safety. So the three households gathered at our respective doors. Fingerprints scanned. Blood sampled. Status verified. Two sides authenticated in sync. The steel doors unlocked. And for the first time since the world fell apart, all three families stepped into the same room together. Since the world collapsed, this was the first time the three households stood face to face. No screens. No encrypted chat. No shared surveillance feed. Just us. Lily sat in her stroller, wide-eyed and curious, as if this were some kind of strange indoor playground instead of a war council. Vivian led us upstairs to the top floor. When she flipped on the lights, every single one of us froze. My jaw actually dropped. The room looked like a private armory disguised as a toy museum. Display cabinets lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Inside them were meticulously arranged weapon replicas, figurines, mechanical models, limited edition collectibles. One entire wall was mounted with firearm models, rifles, pistols, sniper systems, tactical builds. If someone had blindfolded me and brought me in, I would have thought I'd walked into a military vault. Adrian scratched his head sheepishly.
I'm a game developer,
he said.
These are all 3D reference models for weapons in my games. I kept collecting them over the years. Eventually, I had to dedicate a whole room.
Caleb and Ethan both looked like children inside a candy store.
This is insane,
Caleb muttered. Vivian clapped her hands lightly.
Go ahead. Pick what feels comfortable. They're all replicas, but like the one Caleb used before, they're modified. They fire steel pellets. Enough to injure. Enough to deter. Enough to hunt birds.
One by one we chose. Each household selected a primary model. Each of us carried away a full crate of pellets for emergency use. Maya awkwardly held a massive sniper replica nearly half her size. Her voice trembled slightly.
Even if we learn to use these, even if we're all perfect shots, these won't stop a full group. They're good against a few targets. But if a squad comes?
That was exactly my fear. Zombies were predictable. Low cognition. Linear movement. No climbing ability. No strategic planning. As long as we stayed behind reinforced walls and controlled scent and sound, they were manageable. But humans? Humans calculated. Humans scouted. Humans returned. Right now the apocalypse was still young. We were remote. Traffic was minimal. But what if the 3 intruders from before had only been scouts? What if someone bigger was mapping this area? Then our quiet villa cluster would look less like homes and more like loot. Vivian noticed the tension on Maya's face. She placed a steady hand on both of our shoulders. She was about to speak, when every watch on our wrists vibrated at the exact same time. The smartwatches Vivian had gifted us weren't just communication tools. They were tied to the outer perimeter detection system. This vibration pattern meant one thing. Living humans had entered the 50-meter outer surveillance boundary. When Vivian and Adrian first moved into the villa years ago, they had installed perimeter sensors covering a full 50-meter radius around the property. Cameras. Motion detectors. Audio capture. We crowded around the live feed. 3 large SUVs. 1 pickup truck. They parked behind Vivian's property, directly facing the rear approach between my house and Caleb's, about 30 to 40 meters from our gates. 20-plus men stepped out. All physically strong. All carrying pickaxes. At the front stood a man close to 6'3", a long scar slashed across his face. One glance was enough to understand he was dangerous. Hands in his pockets, casual.
Is this the place?
Beside him, a bald, heavily muscled man nodded.
Yeah. Ossie and his 2 brothers scoped this area and never came back. Remote location. Villa district. Low population. Low infected count. Those 3 knew how to handle zombies. If they disappeared, it wasn't the undead. Probably some homeowner ambushed them.
The scarred man narrowed his eyes, studying our reinforced walls.
These villas have higher security ratings than the others. Stay sharp.
Another voice from the back laughed.
If we take this block, we've got ourselves a base camp. And if we're lucky, maybe a rich lady or 2 to keep things interesting.
A whistle followed. The bald man immediately slapped him.
Keep it down. Spook them, and I'll feed you to the infected.
The men began unloading ladders, thick rope, and large machete-like blades from the pickup truck. Their movements were efficient. Practiced. They casually drove off a few wandering zombies that drifted too close. This wasn't random desperation. This was organized raiding. Professional scavengers. Ethan squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. His palm was soaked in sweat.
We cannot let them breach the courtyard. If they enter the inner perimeter, we lose control.
Caleb's jaw tightened.
Vivian, can your rifles be modified with sedatives? I can mix something fast.
He was already thinking tactically.
Adrian, what's the sight line from your rooftop? I need elevation.
For a moment, Adrian said nothing. Then he stepped forward calmly.
Everyone breathe.
He exchanged a quiet look with Vivian. She gave the smallest nod.
Let them come a little closer.
Adrian said evenly.
I have a better way to deal with this group.
And somehow, that quiet confidence was more terrifying than the raiders outside. Adrian sat down at his workstation and tapped across his keyboard for only a few seconds. Then he clicked a single button labeled OK.
Done.
He leaned back with unmistakable confidence. But on the surveillance feed, the raiding group had already finished preparing. They were moving in formation now, low, cautious, deliberate, closing in on our villas. We exchanged uneasy glances. No one questioned him. Trust at this point was a necessity, not a luxury. Caleb had already taken position with the modified pellet sniper rifle, steady and ready. Vivian, on the other hand, calmly lifted her coffee and sat down as if she were about to enjoy an art house film rather than a live invasion attempt. Adrian rubbed his hands together, looking almost excited, like a game developer waiting for beta test results.
Allow me a little suspense,
he said. The men outside moved closer. We watched as they raised ladders and leaned them against the outer wall. Maya instinctively pressed herself against Caleb's chest. I scooped Lily into my arms. With my free hand, I clutched Ethan's palm so tightly my fingers ached. If they made it over the wall... Then suddenly our watches vibrated again. This alert pattern was different. It signaled approaching infected. Vivian took another sip of coffee. On the monitor, movement appeared at the edge of the street. One zombie. Then two. Then more. Within seconds, dozens were emerging from side streets, alleyways, empty driveways, shambling steadily toward the raiders. Farther back, even more figures moved in slow, relentless waves. The bald man outside spat on the ground.
What the hell? I thought this place was quiet. This is turning into a swarm.
They immediately turned their pickaxes toward the incoming infected. Several reacted quickly, scrambling up their ladders, desperate to vault over our wall to escape the growing mass. Caleb did not hesitate. Anyone whose head rose above the wall line. Thud. Muted crack. Down they went. The pellet sniper's suppressor kept the shots soft but precise. One by one, climbers were knocked backward off the ladders. Chaos erupted outside the perimeter. The 20-plus raiders quickly became overwhelmed. Several were bitten. Some were knocked unconscious and dragged away. The bald man's voice cracked as he shouted while swinging his pickaxe wildly.
Boss, this place is cursed. We're getting wiped out.
The scarred leader was already retreating, fighting his way toward one of the SUVs.
Fall back. Now.
The surviving few, wounded, bleeding, panicked, barely managed to pile into the vehicles. But the infected had already surrounded them in thick clusters. The scarred man slammed the accelerator.
This damn neighborhood's a zombie nest. Who fed us this intel? I swear I'll kill him myself.
The bald man was sobbing openly now.
It was Ossie and his brothers. They said it was clean. I came here to avenge them, and I just saw them biting our guys in that swarm.
The SUV roared forward, crushing through the infected mass. Thanks to the vehicle's heavy frame and torque, it broke through the wall of bodies and sped off into the night. In the end, only 5 of the raiders escaped. Each of them carried visible bite or claw wounds. Whether they would survive infection was no longer our concern. When the adrenaline drained from our bodies, we all collapsed onto the floor. My legs felt hollow.
What just happened?
Ethan finally asked.
Why were there so many infected all of a sudden?
Adrian straightened slightly, slipping into what Caleb later jokingly called his developer presentation mode.
On the roof,
He began.
we installed an acoustic emitter. It broadcasts a specific frequency range within a 5-kilometer radius.
He gestured toward Vivian.
You all know Vivian worked in high-level bioresearch overseas. The original controlled prototypes responded to sonic command signals. The current infected may be behaviorally degraded, but they still react strongly to certain frequencies.
Vivian nodded calmly.
I preserved fragments of the research data before everything collapsed, including frequency bands used for neural triggering.
Adrian continued, clearly proud of the system.
So we built a device that can simulate those signals. We can redirect nearby infected clusters toward a chosen coordinate.
He smiled faintly.
We can't win against organized human raiders in direct combat. But the enemy of our enemy is useful.
We found ourselves applauding before we even realized it. It was brilliant. Terrifying. Brilliant. Ethan glanced back at the monitor.
They're still gathering outside though. What about that?
Adrian scratched the back of his neck.
That part's a minor bug. Once the signal fades, they'll eventually disperse. We just couldn't risk using it before when threats were small scale.
The infected remained outside the reinforced walls, pressing and groaning, but the upgraded perimeter was holding. As long as it wasn't a full-scale horde in the tens of thousands, we would be safe.
Still,
I muttered, rubbing my arms as goosebumps spread across my skin.
it's unsettling to watch.
Maya shivered beside me. Vivian, astonishingly composed, calmly arranged several small dessert plates on the table.
Sugar helps with shock,
She said gently. And somehow, in the middle of the apocalypse, we found ourselves eating pastries while a controlled zombie swarm lingered beyond our walls. Ever since the Scarred Man and his raider crew failed to breach our neighborhood, word must have spread through whatever savage circles still operated out there. No other looting teams ever showed up again. For the first time since the collapse, life inside our gated community settled into something almost peaceful. 3 months into the apocalypse, we had adapted to the rhythm of survival. Through an old battery-powered radio, we learned that the federal government had moved quickly, establishing survivor bases, investing heavily in antibody research, and launching coordinated rescue operations across the country. Our neighborhood was remote, sparsely populated, and easy to overlook. It took another 2 months after we first heard the broadcasts before a fully armed military convoy finally rolled through. They cleared zombies along the roadside as they advanced, loudspeakers blasting calls for survivors to come forward and relocate to official bases. Ethan and I watched through the security monitors for a while before logging into our neighborhood group channel. Me.
Should we consider going to a survivor base?
Caleb Reed.
We're still self-sufficient for now. Maybe we shouldn't burden them unless we have to.
Maya Reed.
I just recounted our supplies. If we combine what the 3 households have, we're covered for at least 3 to 5 years. And we've all started planting.
Ethan and I had converted the sunken garden outside our basement into a small greenhouse. We grew modest amounts of vegetables and grains and had stored extra seed stock, which we distributed among the others. Each household focused on different crops. With that system, surviving 5 years or more wasn't unrealistic. If we were lucky, by then society would be stabilizing. We might step back into daylight alongside other survivors and help rebuild something new.
Adrian, our security rating is stable for now. I'll keep upgrading the perimeter systems.
Just like that, we collectively decided to stay put, for the time being. From the cameras, we saw the convoy linger near the neighborhood entrance for nearly an hour. Not a single survivor emerged. Before leaving, they dropped a cache of supplies. None of us went to claim it. We silently agreed to leave it for anyone in the area who might truly need it. Over the next 2 weeks, the convoy returned 3 times, distributing supplies at different locations. On their final visit, their broadcast looped for nearly an hour. They would return once a month for the next 6 months, clearing remaining infected and searching for survivors in the region. Seeing the government's rapid response and structured rescue efforts gave us a deep sense of reassurance. The stone that had been lodged in my chest for months finally eased. We didn't know exactly when this nightmare would end. But for the first time, we believed it would. Life entered something close to normal. Most of the city still lacked electricity and internet access, so major online platforms were dead. Adrian, unwilling to surrender his passion, built a small local network game exclusively for Ethan and Caleb. The 3 of them would play late into the night over the LAN, laughing and trash-talking like it was the world before. Meanwhile, I embraced a slower rhythm, tending crops, reading books, raising Lily. Sometimes we'd gather for tea in Vivian's overgrown backyard, admiring wildflowers that had overtaken the landscaping. Other afternoons we fished in Caleb and Maya's backyard pond, where they had begun raising stockfish. Half a year passed in quiet contentment. Then one afternoon, Caleb logged into the channel urgently. Caleb, read.
Maya isn't feeling well. Does anyone have medication for stomach issues?
Ethan, the only doctor among us, responded immediately. Ethan?
What symptoms?
Caleb, read.
She throws up anything she eats. Weak limbs. No energy.
My heart skipped. Those symptoms sounded familiar. I quickly shared my suspicion with Ethan and told Caleb not to give Maya any medication until we arrived. Vivian, sensing the gravity in our exchange, offered to come along. When we reached their house, Maya looked genuinely unwell, slumped on the couch, face drained of color, barely able to sit upright. Caleb was drenched in sweat.
We haven't eaten anything unusual,
he insisted.
Just our usual rice and preserved grains. Well, we did cook one of the pond fish that died yesterday. Maybe it's spoiled?
Ethan placed a steady hand on his shoulder.
Let's not jump to conclusions.
I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small item I had stockpiled long before the world ended. I pressed it into Maya's hand. She looked down at it, confused.
What is this?
Read the instructions,
I said gently. Her eyes widened.
You're saying I
nodded.
I stocked a few before everything collapsed. They might be past the printed date, but that shouldn't affect the result much.
Vivian immediately understood and accompanied Maya to the bathroom. Caleb ran a hand through his hair, looking utterly disoriented.
That's impossible. We tried for years. Nothing ever worked.
Ethan nudged him with his elbow, grinning.
We survived the apocalypse. Why would this be impossible? Besides, we stockpiled everything except birth control. Maybe this was fate.
5 minutes later, Vivian and Maya stepped out of the bathroom. Maya's hands trembled. 2 bold red lines glowed on the test strip. In a world filled with death, decay, and silence, new life had quietly chosen to begin. And every one of us felt the weight of that miracle. Maya's pregnancy was the greatest joy we had experienced since the world fell apart. We sealed the blackout curtains tight and gathered at Caleb and Maya's house, decorating as best we could with what little we had: string lights powered by backup batteries, candles set inside thick glass jars. We celebrated in hushed voices late into the night, careful not to let sound carry beyond our insulated walls. Now, the most important task was preparing for the baby's arrival. What surprised me most was Vivian. As someone who had once firmly identified as child-free, she had nevertheless stockpiled newborn essentials, formula for every stage, diapers in multiple sizes, baby bottles, even basic infant medications. It proved how far ahead she had thought. She hadn't only planned for survival, she had planned for growth. She had factored in the possibility that new life might enter our little community one day. Ethan, of course, threw himself into preparation. He wasn't an obstetrician, but from the moment we confirmed Maya's pregnancy, he began devouring obstetrics textbooks and medical manuals, reviewing delivery procedures and neonatal emergency care. If a child was going to be born here, he would be ready. I started organizing Lily's old baby clothes and toys, sorting through tiny sweaters and soft blankets I had carefully stored away. Holding them brought back memories of warmth and noise from a time that felt impossibly distant. Caleb transformed overnight into a hyper-attentive caretaker. He took over nearly all the farming and household chores. With our limited ingredients, mostly grains, preserved vegetables, and pond fish, he somehow managed to invent different nutritious meals every day to stimulate Maya's appetite. The thought that soon there would be another laughing child in these houses filled us with a quiet, spreading warmth. It felt like continuation. Like proof that even in the shadow of extinction, light could still break through. When Maya was 6 months pregnant, winter arrived, and with it, the first Christmas since the apocalypse. The streets beyond our gates remained silent and lifeless. But inside our 3 villas, it was unexpectedly festive. Caleb did something unprecedented. He slaughtered one of their chickens and prepared an elaborate dinner. Wild greens from our gardens, preserved mushrooms, roasted meat. He invited both our families to celebrate Christmas together. We made dumplings from scratch, our own fusion tradition, stuffed with chives and egg. We baked bread, letting it rise beside the fireplace, a quiet symbol of hope rising with it. Adrian, not to be outdone, showcased another hidden talent. With steady hands and remarkable precision, he painted 3 large holiday banners using calligraphy brushes and black ink. Instead of old-world blessings about prosperity or fortune, the phrases he wrote were wishes for the end of the plague, for restored cities, for peace in every household. They felt painfully relevant. At the table, Caleb brought out a bottle of whiskey he had been saving for years. He poured each of us a glass. His voice shook slightly as he thanked us, for being neighbors who became family, for helping him survive when the world ended. Then he lifted his glass toward the ceiling and thanked whatever higher power still listened, for finally granting him and Maya the child they had hoped for over so many years. We laughed and cried in the same breath. For a moment, we forgot to lower our voices. Then we remembered our soundproofing and, strangely, allowed ourselves that brief indulgence. Vivian drank more than usual that night. There was something heavy behind her eyes. After persistent questioning, Vivian finally spoke, helped by the alcohol loosening her restraint. She had continued her research. Using the data she had gathered before the collapse, she was still working on a serum, an antibody capable of neutralizing the infection. She had made progress. But she had reached a bottleneck. To proceed, she needed a live infected subject for clinical observation. The problem was that most of the infected in our immediate area had been eliminated during the military sweeps. For nearly a month, our surveillance cameras had not detected a single one.
To capture a live infected,
Vivian said quietly.
I would need to activate the sonic lure device again.
Her expression was troubled.
It could produce several outcomes. Maybe nothing comes. Maybe a swarm comes and puts all of you at risk. Or maybe we capture one, and my experiment still fails.
We all understood the weight she carried. If there was even a chance at reversing this nightmare, how could we refuse?
Vivian,
Ethan said firmly.
if it benefits humanity, you should do it.
Caleb straightened in his chair.
Catching infected? That's my specialty. Tell me what you need.
He tipped back his whiskey and drained the glass. Ethan followed.
In pure combat strength, I'm no match for Caleb.
Ethan added.
But as your medical assistant, I'm solid. You're not alone in this.
Maya and I hugged Vivian tightly.
Revolutions have setbacks.
I told her softly.
We stand with you. Whatever happens.
Adrian had already slumped forward onto the table, half asleep, but his hand never let go of Vivian's. For the first time that night, she smiled. Then she finished her drink in one swallow. On the morning of January 5th, we began. We gathered in Vivian and Adrian's house as they powered up the sonic lure device together. The military's cleansing operations had been thorough. For 30 minutes, nothing moved. At exactly 40 minutes and 32 seconds, just as we were about to shut it down, every one of our watches vibrated with the same alert. Movement detected. Infected within surveillance range. Shock. Relief. Fear. We pulled up the feed. A female infected staggered into view. Her clothing was mostly intact. Aside from the gray film over her eyes and the darkening of her teeth, she bore few visible injuries. Her limbs were undamaged. Recently turned. But all of us noticed the same thing. Her abdomen. Slightly swollen. She had been pregnant before she turned. Maya instinctively placed a hand over her own belly.
Vivian, if someone was pregnant before infection, would the baby turn too?
Vivian shook her head slowly.
I can't say with absolute certainty. But most likely, the fetus wouldn't have survived the transformation.
Silence settled over us. Perhaps because new life was growing among us, we hesitated. Caleb clenched his jaw.
Whatever she was before, she's dangerous now. And she's our only opportunity.
He was right. We pushed aside our fragile sentimentality and began the capture protocol. After transformation, infected possessed abnormal strength, regardless of age or gender. Our plan had to be precise. No unnecessary risks. Caleb, with his combat background, took the lead. He tied a rope into an intricate configuration he called a compression snare, a restraint technique he had once used in the field for high-risk captures, even against feral animals.
It'll hold,
he said simply. The snare required 3 operators. Perfect. Caleb. Ethan. Adrian. The infected woman staggered toward our perimeter wall, drawn by the sonic frequency. Inside the house, Maya, Vivian, and I sat before the monitors. Saying we weren't afraid would have been a lie. As she reached the base of the wall where the men lay in wait, Vivian cut the sonic signal. In one fluid motion, Caleb vaulted over the wall, landing silently behind her. His loop flew through the air and tightened around her torso. Ethan and Adrian burst from the gate simultaneously, each seizing one end of the rope. The infected shrieked, thrashing violently. From the monitor, I noticed something that made my throat tighten. Caleb had positioned the rope carefully, deliberately avoiding her swollen abdomen. The 3 men pulled in unison. Step by step, they dragged her across the yard and through the gate. The doors slammed shut. The first phase of the capture operation. A success. The infected woman was dragged into the fully transparent containment chamber in Vivian's basement. She had designed it long before this moment, an isolated reinforced observation room specifically meant to detain infected subjects. Triple layer glass. Independent air filtration. Remote locking systems. No blind spots. Once the infected was secured inside, Caleb, Ethan, and Adrian exited immediately. She thrashed violently, slamming against the reinforced panels. Vivian pressed a button on the wall console. A dense mist filled the chamber within seconds. The infected staggered, clawed at the air, then collapsed.
This aerosol sedative is tailored to their altered physiology.
Vivian explained calmly.
Extremely potent. She won't be able to move for at least 2 hours.
5 minutes later, after confirming zero movement and stable restraints, the rest of us entered. Ethan and Adrian lifted the unconscious infected onto the central examination platform. They secured her limbs and torso using reinforced nanofiber restraints, material strong enough to withstand mechanical force equivalent to a small vehicle's pull. Only after every safety protocol was double-checked did Vivian begin a preliminary physical assessment. She placed her hand gently on the infected woman's abdomen. Then her expression changed. Her face went pale. She stared at her own hand as if she had touched something impossible. We rushed closer. Under Vivian's palm, the abdomen moved. A subtle ripple. That was a fetal movement, I whispered, my mouth dry. Maya instinctively covered her own stomach. She knew that sensation intimately now. Vivian's voice shifted into clinical focus. She began a comprehensive evaluation, and Ethan stepped forward to assist.
Female infected.
Approximately 28 to 30 years old. Transformation likely under 24 hours ago. Vivian stated steadily.
The infection process appears incomplete. Her bloodstream has not fully degraded. Circulatory function continues at a partial level. Nutrient transfer may still be occurring.
She looked at us.
There is a significant probability that the fetus is still alive.
Ethan placed his stethoscope against the abdomen. A long pause. Then, a faint, rapid heartbeat. We all froze.
That confirms it.
Ethan said quietly. Maya voiced what all of us were thinking.
Is there any chance this baby could survive?
Vivian hesitated.
That depends entirely on how her body responds to the serum.
We'll have to wait for clinical data. To minimize risk, both our family and Caleb and Maya temporarily moved into Vivian and Adrian's villa. With a live infected subject in containment, proximity allowed faster response if anything went wrong. Every day we waited for updates. Ethan remained in the basement lab nearly non-stop, assisting Vivian for close to a month. The results were astonishing. The infected woman did not deteriorate further. In fact, there were signs the transformation process had stalled. Under Vivian's serum protocol and supportive medical treatment, the fetus continued to develop. Against all odds. None of us said it aloud, but we all exhaled a breath we hadn't realized we were holding. By May, the weather had turned mild and almost pleasant. Maya was nearing her due date. All 3 households were on edge. Ethan had already converted the medical section of our basement into a fully prepared delivery suite. Sterile instruments, oxygen supply, blood volume expanders, everything he could assemble from salvaged and stockpiled equipment. Vivian and I studied midwifery guides daily, reviewing emergency scenarios and neonatal resuscitation techniques. Yet Maya remained calm as ever. No signs of labor. No contractions. Ironically, the infected woman began experiencing severe uterine contractions first. In the weeks prior, Vivian's relentless treatment had produced visible changes. The gray pallor of the infected skin had shifted toward a pale human tone. The once blackened blood had regained hints of red. Her eyes and teeth remained permanently altered, but overall she appeared more human than before. Even more startling, she showed cognitive recovery. She could track sound direction. She no longer lunged blindly at movement. Some primitive awareness had returned. Certain internal organ functions had partially resumed. For Vivian's research, this was monumental. It meant the serum was working. Nearly 2 years had passed since the world collapsed. Though national reconstruction efforts continued, normal life had not fully returned. On what used to be May Day, we gathered for a rare, abundant lunch. Halfway through the meal, Vivian's watch alarmed sharply. She pulled up the lab feed. The infected woman was convulsing, roaring in agony.
She's in labor.
Vivian stood abruptly.
Now. Move.
The infected, having regained neural responsiveness, could feel pain again. And the contractions were violent. We abandoned our plates and ran to the basement. Inside the transparent chamber, the infected pressed both hands against the glass. Her face contorted in agony, but there was something else. Pleading. Though blind, tears streamed from her gray eyes. Vivian activated the aerosol anesthetic.
Yes, it may impact the fetus,
she said tightly.
But our safety comes first.
Within seconds, the infected collapsed again. Once the mist cleared, we entered.
We need an emergency C-section immediately,
Ethan said.
Any delay risks fetal distress.
He had already brought surgical instruments with him. For safety, only Ethan, Vivian, and I entered the chamber wearing full protective suits. Ethan had practiced simulated cesarean procedures countless times in preparation for Maya's delivery. Now his movements were steady, controlled. Within 15 minutes, he lifted the infant from the infected woman's uterus. Before the procedure, both mother and fetus had received targeted antiviral suppression therapy. When Ethan raised the newborn, pink-skinned, crying, human, we knew. This was not an infected child. This was a healthy baby boy. We all laughed in relief. Then, Maya doubled over, her face drained of color. The woman who had shown no signs for weeks chose this exact moment to go into labor.
Take her to our delivery room now,
Ethan instructed quickly while continuing to suture the infected's incision.
Don't panic. She's early in dilation. I'll finish here and come immediately.
Caleb supported Maya carefully. I carried the newborn boy. Vivian and Adrian rushed Lily along in her stroller. We hurried to the delivery suite in our basement. I guided Maya through Lama's breathing techniques, teaching her rhythm and control to ease contraction pain. It was her first child. She was terrified, but cooperative. Gradually, her breathing steadied. We waited for dilation to progress. Time moved unbearably slowly. And Ethan still hadn't returned.
Is it taking too long?
I whispered, anxiety rising. Delivering Maya was different from operating on the infected. The emotional weight was heavier. The risks felt sharper. Maya was fully conscious. There was the possibility of hemorrhage, complications, unknown variables we could not fully control. Caleb could barely stand still. He decided to head back toward Vivian's lab with Adrian to check on Ethan. 5 minutes later, Adrian's emergency alert pinged through our shared security network. A red warning icon flashed across the laptop connected to all 3 houses. My heart dropped. I pulled up Vivian's basement camera feed. The transparent containment chamber was empty.
What happened? Where is she?
My lips were trembling as I spoke. The infected woman was gone. And if she was gone, that meant Ethan, who had stayed behind alone to finish suturing her incision, was in danger.
Damn it.
Vivian's face drained of color.
Did she regain consciousness early? I reduced the anesthetic dosage to protect the newborn, yes, but it was still enough to keep her under for at least an hour. She shouldn't have woken up.
I trusted Vivian's expertise, which meant something else had gone wrong. Our watches allowed internal network communication. But Adrian had sent only a danger alert, no message, no text, no voice transmission. That meant one of 2 things. He couldn't make a sound. Or he didn't even have time to type. Calling back would be reckless. If they were hiding, a notification sound could expose them. I forced myself to breathe and opened Vivian's entire surveillance grid. Every camera in her villa. Hallways. Garage. Stairwell. Lab corridor. Empty. No Caleb. No Adrian. No Ethan. They had vanished. Behind me, Maya groaned, sweat soaking her hair, strands plastered to her face.
Caleb, where's Caleb?
She gasped between contractions. She was in pain, half delirious, but still worried about her husband. Vivian and I avoided speaking openly in front of her, but she wore the same watch. She had seen the alert. She knew Caleb was in danger. This was bad. A distressed mother in active labor could complicate everything. I quickly switched to our house's surveillance feed. Then Caleb and Maya's property. Nothing. 3 grown men. 1 infected woman. Gone. Just like that. My heart pounded so hard I felt nauseated. Vivian, despite everything, remained steadier than I was.
There are blind spots.
She said firmly.
Bathrooms. Utility closets. Structural corners. If we don't see them, that doesn't mean they're captured. It means there's at least a 50% chance they're hiding.
I nodded. But fear coiled tighter in my chest. If only the men were missing, maybe they were concealed. But the infected was gone too. Were we supposed to believe they were all hiding together? In our basement delivery suite, only 5 of us remained. Me. Vivian. Maya. Lily. And the newborn boy from the infected mother. A room full of women and infants. If danger breached the house, we would fall in seconds. Maya's contractions were coming closer together. Her body curved forward, helpless against the pain. Neither Vivian nor I could leave. And then, one of the monitors flickered. Static rippled across the screen. The signal glitched. And suddenly, a face filled the frame. A large face, with a long scar running across it. It was a face from our nightmares. The leader of the raiders. He had survived. And he had come back.
Well.
He sneered into the camera.
Miss me, little mice?
I noticed his left arm ended midway below the elbow. Amputated. He must have been bitten during the last attack and cut it off to prevent infection. Vivian frowned.
He's inside our surveillance network. The perimeter alert never triggered.
As if hearing her, the scarred man laughed.
Oh, don't look so shocked. We cut your warning system before entering. Otherwise, how could we surprise you?
He lifted a bundle of severed wires into view and shook them mockingly. Then he leaned even closer to the camera.
Want to see something more interesting?
The camera angle shifted. He was inside Vivian's basement lab. The empty room we had just seen had been a falsified feed. Now the real containment chamber appeared. Inside, the infected woman lay on the floor, still unconscious. And near her, someone else. Face down, not moving. A dark pool spread beneath his neck. The image was grainy, but I recognized the build instantly. Ethan. They had struck him from behind while he was finishing the sutures. He was locked in that room with the infected.
Any guesses when she'll wake up?
The scarred man grinned. My knees buckled.
I have to go to him.
I whispered.
He needs me.
Vivian grabbed me from behind.
Stop. If you go out there, you walk straight into their trap. Caleb and Adrian are not on camera. That means they haven't been captured yet. Possibly not even discovered.
Her voice was sharp, urgent.
He's baiting us. He doesn't know how many of us are inside these villas. He's trying to lure everyone out at once.
I collapsed to the floor, shaking violently.
What am I supposed to do?
Lily, confused by my panic, wrapped her tiny arms around my neck. Her warmth grounded me, barely. Vivian activated the rooftop sonic device remotely. But I didn't understand. Most infected in this region had already been cleared by military sweeps. Even if we summoned more, the raiders were already inside the properties. What good would it do? On the monitor, the scarred man paced casually.
She sure sleeps deeply.
He muttered.
How much anesthetic did you pump into her?
Behind him, in the corner, I counted at least 5 other men. He hadn't come alone. If that many were in Vivian's basement, others were likely already inside our house, and Caleb and Maya's. Vivian and I stared at the screens, calculating, desperate. For a moment, we forgot. Maya was still in labor. When I turned, she was standing behind us, one hand gripping her swollen abdomen. Eyes locked on the screen.
It's him.
She whispered. Then,
Caleb.
Her face twisted in pain. She doubled over. Fluid spilled down her legs. Her water had broken. I rushed forward and guided her back to the delivery bed, gripping her hand tightly.
Maya, listen to me. You have to stay calm. Lie down. Breathe. If you lose control, the baby will be at risk.
Maya was fully dilated. The pain was unbearable. I couldn't leave her side for even a second. Neither could Vivian. We coached her breathing, counting with her, steadying her shoulders, urging her to push with every contraction. After several agonizing rounds, I saw it. A tiny portion of the baby's head. Victory was within reach.
Come on, Maya. You're almost there.
Vivian and I shouted together. And then, a thunderous crash exploded from somewhere behind us. I spun around. The basement light well. Something was slamming into it, hard. If that continued, the reinforced glass wouldn't last much longer. When Ethan and I designed this basement, we prepared it for every apocalyptic possibility we could imagine. The main entrance was hidden, fortified, nearly impossible to breach. Which meant the attackers had only one viable weak point: the light well glass.
They're trying to break in through the light well.
Vivian didn't even care whether Maya could see the screen anymore. She had already dragged the surveillance laptop from the control room to the bedside. On the yard camera feed, more than a dozen men were using a thick tree trunk as a battering ram against the glass. We had reinforced it with multiple layers. But cracks were already spreading like spider webs. 2 more hits, at most, and it would shatter. Thank God Ethan had agreed to my insistence on a secondary defense. I sprinted to the basement control panel and slammed the switch that sealed off the sunken garden from the basement interior. The steel security door hadn't been used in years. When I hit the button, it groaned reluctantly, metal grinding against its track. It moved too slowly. Just as it was about to shut completely, glass exploded. They were in. The custom door Ethan and I had ordered was thick, solid, nearly soundproof. The instant it sealed shut, the outside chaos vanished. Silence. At the same moment, every surveillance feed went black. The signal had been cut. Adrian must have warned us before, but whoever led them, someone had severed the connection. Then, a sharp, piercing cry broke the stillness. A newborn's cry. Maya's baby was born.
It's a big, healthy boy,
Vivian said, wiping the baby down with shaking but steady hands. Maya was pale as paper, completely drained, but she managed a faint smile. We cut the cord. Disinfected. Wrapped the baby. Settled them both as best we could. Only then did we notice. There was no sound outside. None at all. Ethan. Caleb. Adrian. We had no idea what had happened to them. Our entire surveillance system was down. Even the internal network was malfunctioning. We were cut off from everything beyond the basement.
There's one last option.
Vivian's voice felt distant. My brain had been frozen for so long that it took a moment for her words to register.
You mean, we still have a chance?
She nodded. Then shook her head slightly.
I don't know if we'll survive. But right now, this place is a cage of our own making. If we don't get out, nothing else matters.
Hope flickered back to life inside me. Vivian had always been the one with contingencies. If she said there was a chance, I would believe her. She led me to the equipment room door in the basement. The door could be unlocked remotely by our watches. When the 3 families bought these adjacent villas, we built in a shared security protocol. If any 2 households performed synchronized fingerprint verification through their encrypted watches, the equipment room door would open, allowing us to move between houses in emergencies. I knew Vivian wasn't showing me this without reason.
But I still asked, even if we reach one of the other houses, what then? They've probably taken all 3?
She blinked once.
There's a hidden tunnel inside the equipment room.
My breath caught.
It was designed before you and Ethan moved in. The complicated access system wasn't just for privacy. It protects the final escape route.
Tears blurred my vision. Like a drowning person grabbing onto a rope.
We're lucky,
she continued.
There's exactly 1 adult left from each family here.
When she and her husband originally designed the tunnel's activation protocol, they had debated for days. In the end, they made a decision. The secret passage would only open if 1 member from each of the 3 families verified their fingerprint. All 3. Live together. Or die together. Vivian. My voice broke. I didn't know how to thank her for the kind of loyalty that built something like that. She squeezed my shoulder.
We're family. Don't forget that.
We lifted Maya carefully into a wheelchair. Vivian pushed her. Maya cradled her newborn son tightly against her chest. I pushed Lily's stroller. The three of us gathered in front of the equipment room door. At the same time, we pressed our fingerprints against our watches. The door unlocked with a heavy click. Deep beneath us, machinery rumbled, gears grinding into motion. Behind a cluster of electrical panels, a narrow seam split open in the wall, just wide enough for one person to pass through. We folded the wheelchair. Collapsed the stroller. One by one, we entered the tunnel. Vivian felt along the wall until she found the emergency switch. Dim lights flickered on overhead. Then she pressed another hidden button. Behind us, the entrance sealed shut. It blended seamlessly into the wall, no trace it had ever opened. Ahead stretched a narrow corridor. The floor was damp. The air cold. But it was ventilated. A faint current brushed across my face. We walked in silence. Inside the tunnel, I had no sense of direction. We must have walked nearly 10 minutes, twisting through several turns.
If they find this tunnel, what then?
Maya asked weakly from the wheelchair. She had regained some strength.
They won't get in.
Vivian answered calmly.
If they try to force the equipment room, the self-destruct system will trigger and collapse the entrance.
She paused.
And I trust our husbands. They won't give up their fingerprints.
The thought of them, Ethan, Caleb, Adrian, wherever they were, pressed heavily over us. Silence returned.
Almost there.
I whispered. The airflow was stronger now. We reached a rusted metal ladder. With enormous effort, we climbed. The tunnel opened into an abandoned factory's old electrical shaft. And finally, we were out.
Shu, listen. I think someone's out there.
Maya had just given birth, yet somehow her hearing seemed sharper than ever. We held our breath. Sure enough, faint footsteps echoed through the abandoned factory, growing closer. More than one person.
They didn't follow us here, did they?
I whispered. We quickly pulled the wheelchair and stroller behind a stack of rusted machinery and crouched low in the shadows. Moments later, two figures appeared, sweeping flashlights frantically across the space.
Vivian? Maya.
They called out in hushed but urgent voices as they searched. The voices were familiar. Adrian. And Caleb Reed. They had made it out. They were looking for us. Vivian and Maya didn't hesitate, they rushed out from hiding. The four of them collided in a tight embrace, relief breaking over their faces all at once. I felt happiness for them. But then I looked past their shoulders. Ethan wasn't there? My heart clenched again.
Caleb, Adrian, my husband, Ethan,
The words tumbled out, interrupting their reunion. Caleb grinned, steady as ever.
Hey, don't worry. Ethan's okay.
Caleb wasn't the kind of man who exaggerated. One look at his relaxed expression told me he meant it. I exhaled so deeply, my knees almost gave out. Vivian and Maya came to stand beside me, squeezing my hands. Adrian began filling us in on everything we had missed. When he and Caleb went back to Vivian's house to look for Ethan, Adrian's watch received an intrusion alert from the lab. Among all of us, only Adrian's smartwatch was connected to the laboratory's early warning system. If there was a forced entry or any abnormal activity, an alert would automatically be pushed to his device. It was still in beta testing, so even Vivian's watch didn't have that function installed yet. Once Adrian and Caleb saw the alert, they had no idea how severe the threat was. Afraid of drawing attention, they didn't dare make noise. Adrian could only send Vivian a silent warning ping. After that, they hid in Caleb and Maya's basement. Caleb's home had also been upgraded after the apocalypse, with reinforced defenses and its own monitoring setup. Even before the world collapsed, Caleb, who used to run an outdoor survival livestream channel, had installed discrete cameras all around his property for filming purposes. Those cameras ran on a separate circuit from the main surveillance system Adrian installed later. So when the Scarred Man cut our primary network, he overlooked Caleb's independent recording system. Through those hidden cameras, Caleb and Adrian watched the Scarred Man and his group storm all 3 of our houses. They saw Ethan inside the lab. They saw him ambushed from behind, knocked unconscious, locked in the same sealed room as the captured infected woman. The Scarred Man didn't have the lab's access code. Once the door shut, it couldn't be reopened. The transparent lab walls were made of reinforced composite materials, nearly impossible to destroy, even with weapons. But he never intended to open it again. His plan was simple. Wait for the infected woman to wake up. Let her kill Ethan. Caleb and Adrian had been preparing to rush the lab and get him out. But before they finalized a plan, she woke up. Vivian's anesthetic dose, after all, had been conservative. The infected woman regained consciousness. Ethan was still out cold. Adrian and Caleb watched the feed, their hearts in their throats. They grabbed whatever tools they could find, ready to force their way into the lab. But what happened next stunned them. The infected woman did not attack. Instead, she slowly placed both hands on her now flattened abdomen. A look of confusion crossed her face. Then she quietly moved to the corner and curled up, completely still. Outside the lab, the Scarred Man raged, trying and failing to reopen the door. Furious, he eventually led most of his men from Vivian's yard into ours. Seeing that Ethan wasn't in immediate danger, Caleb and Adrian chose not to reveal themselves. But the network had already been sabotaged. They had no way to contact us. So while we were trapped in chaos underground, they could only watch and worry.
But how did you escape and find us?
Maya asked weakly.
Did they just leave when they couldn't find anyone?
Caleb, now holding his newborn son in one arm, gently rubbed Maya's hair with the other.
Leave? Not a chance. Those guys don't quit. Once they break in, they finish what they started.
Then how?
I couldn't piece it together. 2 men, even one a trained veteran like Caleb, couldn't possibly overpower a heavily armed gang and walk away untouched.
Stop guessing.
Vivian said with a faint smile as she stepped forward.
They didn't win alone.
She looked at Adrian.
They got backup. And I'm guessing,
she added,
they received the signal I sent.
I have always admired Vivian. She once infiltrated an extremist organization overseas and walked out alive. That wasn't because of her calm, unassuming face. It was her mind. And her courage. Earlier, when she activated the sonic device, I thought she was repeating the same strategy, trying to lure a swarm of infected toward the Scarred Man's group. It hadn't worked before. I assumed she was just trying everything out of desperation. But I was wrong. When she activated the sonic system this time, she transmitted 2 signals simultaneously. One frequency to attract infected. Another, an encrypted distress beacon. After our first use of the sonic device months ago, Post-collapse federal security forces had begun monitoring that specific waveform in real time. This time when the distress code was embedded in the signal. They responded immediately. They dispatched the same military convoy unit that had cleared infected from our neighborhood before. The scarred man and his men were disarmed and subdued in less than 10 minutes.
We didn't find you in the basement birthing room,
Adrian said, clapping my shoulder gently.
so we figured you'd use the tunnel. We came straight here.
He smiled reassuringly. Ethan was evacuated by a professional medical team. The doctors said it's just minor trauma and surface injuries. A few days of rest and he'll be back on his feet. Year 3 after the collapse. If someone had told me back then that life would return to normal, I wouldn't have believed them. But here we are. Ethan is back at the hospital, practicing medicine again. I've resumed teaching, remote lectures from home at first, now partially in person. After the scarred man's attack, we were officially rescued and placed under federal protection. Vivian handed over all her research data without reservation. Her findings accelerated the development of an antibody vaccine against the infection. The second round of clinical trials is now underway. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. The government moved quickly to restore infrastructure, production, and civil order. Sometimes it feels like the endless hordes, the ruined streets, the blood-soaked panic were nothing but a fever dream. Oh, and the infected woman we captured for clinical observation? She has recovered roughly 80% of normal human physiological function. Her cognitive ability remains at the level of a toddler, but she is no longer aggressive, no longer contagious. A specialized rehabilitation facility has been established for people like her, providing care and continued treatment. As for her son, he was born completely healthy. Vivian and Caleb formally adopted him. They named him Felix. A little lucky star, not just for their family, but for all of us. Lily absolutely adores being a big sister figure to her 2 younger brothers. Which means I, a university professor, now also moonlight as a preschool teacher, running early childhood enrichment sessions for 3 energetic toddlers. We survived the end of the world. We stepped into something new. Though honestly, Ethan and I might need therapy again for our apocalyptic paranoia. I've already started restocking the basement. Just in case. Because who's to say when the next end of the world might come?